don't think it's stopped raining, has it, for the last... No. I think I went to bed about 12:01 and it was still going then. Right, okay, yeah, welcome to...
Hello, welcome to Dead Stuff.
Hello, welcome to Dead Stuff.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah. Hello, welcome to Dead Stuff. We're back again with Kev and Jake. Hello.
Woo woo.
What have we been up to since? It's been a couple of weeks because we had a postponement.
Yeah.
Holidays, birthdays.
We've been working, birthdays. Happy birthday, Jake.
Jake's 44. He's not 44. What did we watch? We watched the new Jimmy Savile.
That was bloody weird. The Reckoning on... What did we watch it on? It's at BBC.
BBC, yeah, ironically.
Bloody hell. Yeah, fair play to them for being brave enough to do like a challenging piece like that does... Yeah. You know, it does... they don't really come out that well.
Yeah, it raises a lot of questions as to how that came about. They've all sat there and gone, right, everyone's blamed us for covering this stuff up.
And then they do this massive piece on it. Steve Coogan, who plays Jimmy Savile, is brilliant.
You wouldn't even... You glance at him from especially like the side profile and just the poses, because he holds his cigar in a certain weird way and it's great, but in a really horrible way.
I thought it was a documentary, so it's like a reenactment of...
It's a drama series.
Docudrama. It's mostly drama, but there are elements where they, victims are...
That's it, yeah. So it is a docudrama, isn't it? Yeah, because you've got like about 4 or 5. There's one guy and a few women, and they're saying, in between certain scenes, they'll say, "Yeah, this happened and this happened," and we went on. Jim will fix it, and we thought he was lovely, and then he took us in the back room, and it's
insane.
God. And we were just on the edge of our seats most of the time, just going, "Oh no, what's going to happen?"
We watched the whole thing in one go.
That was how many episodes? We were there for about a good 4 hours. Yeah,
4 episodes.
But I would recommend it highly, but it's not for everyone, is it?
No, it's not. And I remember being a kid. I mean, I'm 52. I watched him growing up. I used to watch Jim Will Fix It when I write in there. I remember being in my early 20s. This would be about 92, 93, 94. And you'd always see him on the London Marathon.
Yeah.
It raised millions for charities.
He was always running, wasn't he?
And I just remember watching him in my early 20s thinking, oh, what a great guy. What a great guy raising all that money for charities. Running marathons at his age. What a dude. And
I remember you saying, because there's reenactments on the series of like specific episodes of Jim Will Fix It, like they've got loads of Boy Scouts.
Word for
and he's
word.
like, I remember watching the original one, and I was like, that must be so odd.
That's it, and especially the Boy Scout one, because that was played every Christmas on like TV, best bits of British TV, and there'd always be the Jimmy Savile bit on there where the Boy Scouts had their lunch on a roller coaster. That was their wish.
And then the one guy who's on it, one of the victims, he's one of those little boys on the episode, and he watched the real episode at the time, but watching it reenacted, I was like, it must be strange for someone who was there at as like a 10-year-old kid. But because I forgot he was in fucking Big Brother.
I forgot about that too.
And I was like, oh shit, so he's part of my generation.
That's it.
Almost.
OBE, Knighthood, Christmas dinners
MBE.
with Thatcher.
Was it OBE?
OBE and then a knighthood.
Yeah.
Thatcher gave him a knighthood in her last honours.
But yeah, I would recommend it. I know there's one person I know, a friend of mine, who said I can't finish it.
Yeah.
For sensitive type people, it's not. Like I said before, it leaves it all to the imagination. You can't, obviously that doesn't.
Good. I mean, it's not. It's not. It's grim. It's grim.
And it shows you like graphic. Behind closed doors, because you see him as this celebrity who's everyone loves and he loves them, and he's just because Jim Will Fix It. He was just trying to make everyone's dreams come true for little kids and whatever, cancer patients, this, that, the other. But then you see him like behind closed doors, and he's vile.
Yeah,
and he doesn't. You can tell he doesn't care about people. He's just using it to his advantage. Like,
he was born on Halloween, and he was the 7th son of the 7th son. How weird is that?
He was telling me this when we were watching it, and because you were saying about this YouTube
there's a classic
video. Right, this sounds ridiculous.
Cult kind of thing.
There's a YouTube video. This is going to sound completely bonkers. There's a YouTube video that's been on YouTube for years, and I mean it's going to sound really weird. It says it's called "Was Jimmy Savile a Wizard?" That's the title of the video.
But
it's just. But I mean, and I watched it. Obviously, I mean, I've seen it years ago. I watched it, and there's so many bloody. I mean, I'm not saying he was a wizard, but there's so many weird things that he did and does,
and
said that were lingering on aspects of the occult.
Yeah,
and I don't want to go into it in too detail, but it's just really bloody weird.
And when you told me about it, as I carried on watching it, I was going, I just noticed that.
There's some
things he said and did.
Things he wore, things he accessorised, things that he said.
Because you said, this, that, the other that he's wearing, it is a sign of so-and-so. And then I saw it, I was going, oh, yeah, it's really obvious.
Jewellery that he had, rings that he had, even to some aspect, the way he used his cigar.
Yeah.
Well,
he'd have it like...
He'd point it at people, go jingle jangle.
He'd have it like that,
and
wouldn't
he'd have these words that he'd make up.
Like that.
Yeah, and he'd point, and people are going, and at the time he was wearing, it's going to sound so mental, he had this pendant that he wore that was a gold wishbone, right?
Okay, yeah.
Ancient occult symbol. He had, one of his rings was a golden cap of a pyramid.
Yeah, like
ancient religious symbol.
Yeah.
And there's all these little, and he was a miner for a few years. And one of the things, none of the miners would speak to him. They all thought he was a witch. They all thought he was into black magic because he'd go down the mine, work all day, come out, and he'd be spotlessly clean, and everybody else would be black. And they'd say to each other, "Why is he always? Why is he not dirty? Because he'd work hard. He wouldn't speak to anyone.
We couldn't go down a mine and not get a speck of fucking thing.
No, and he'd come out. It'd be really clean, and a lot of the miners didn't like him because they thought there was something weird about him.
Yeah. So all these different things that you pointed out, him wearing and saying and doing and whatever, and I was thinking that is just a bit too strange. He's not just this creepy dude. There's something like mystical about him.
And the way he manipulated people.
Oh God, yeah.
So it was crazy.
Like Broadmoor, the hospital for criminally insane people. Like both Crays went there. The Yorkshire Ripper went there. Did all that sort of stuff. Ian Brady was in there. He ended up befriending Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister at the time, or nearly the Prime Minister. She gave him the keys to become like the...
She literally put him in charge of it.
And all these
celebrity
and all these prison, and all these prison staff because they went on strike or they were doing this and that.
He was negotiating with the unions.
That's Batman. That's like a scene from Batman.
Yeah,
where the Joker gets the keys to the.
It is, man. The keys to the asylum.
So he could just go in there whenever he fancied, and then
had an office. He had
close the door behind him and
oh my God,
do what he wanted. And obviously, most of them were that far gone and insane that if he did whatever he did to them, they wouldn't believe him.
No, they wouldn't believe him at all. And he had that really weird relationship with his mum. The expression "cold mother" comes up again when you watch that documentary.
Because he treated her like he called her the Duchess. He bought her when he got quite famous and rich. He bought her a massive new house on the sea, beautiful place. Took her everywhere, treated her like an absolute princess. But she was always putting him down all the time and always saying, "Well, you haven't got because he was a bachelor.
You haven't got a real job.
You haven't got a kid. You haven't got a wife. You haven't got a proper job. You're never going to be on the BBC."
Despite having fame and fortune and everything.
Yeah, and eventually he got there, and she was still a bit like, "Well, you haven't got a wife, have you?" And all this.
Well, once he got his OBE, she chilled out.
Okay.
But often in interviews he'll say, "Well, the only woman I ever loved was the Duchess."
Yeah.
And later on in his house, this is a few years after the Duchess had died, he had all of her clothes in wardrobes. He kept all of her stuff in the wardrobes.
In plastic things.
He'd have them dry cleaned once a year.
Because he had a guy sat with him for years, wasn't it, over time, writing a book about him.
Yeah.
And they had a really weird relationship because he would say, no, you're bullshitting now, come on, tell me the truth, and and all this. And he would like slyly sneak off, and there's a bit where he's going into his bedroom, and he opens it up, and he's like, what the fuck?
It's full of these...
Mum's long gone, and he's got all of her clothes in there, and like, yeah, he was just one of the weirdest guys. Real weird. But, yeah, for anyone that wants to watch it, I would recommend it because I was fascinated, but it is a creepy watch.
Yeah,
and Steve Coogan, fair play to him, is for doing that anyway. Like I said to you, imagine, are you ready now for the first scene? And then looking in the mirror as him.
Yeah,
and because he was a good impressionist anyway.
He was brilliant.
Oh God,
he's a great actor, Steve Coogan.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'd recommend for you, especially not knowing much about him, watch a 10-minute interview with Jimmy Savile, then watch like the first episode, and you'll be like, whoa, it's just nuts.
He did a very good thing with Louis Theroux.
Yeah, this was before it all came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, probably one of the last big televised interviews that Jimmy Savile did. It was watch that and then watch the doc.
Because now that you know about him, you look back, because Louis Theroux has like reflected on it since, and he goes, I should have seen the signs, because he would see like a 15-year-old girl like and go, oh, I'm Jimmy, and he's like holding her butt cheeks and like, you know, being and kissing them all the way up on their neck and stuff in public, like, and it's just a bit. He always went that step too far, didn't he? He wouldn't just kiss a girl on the cheek. He would be really like, and it was right there in front of everyone's faces, like, but. That's why the BBC, I think they tried to redeem themselves, didn't they, with this? Because they in the programme, they were like, oh, no, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we're looking after him, we're making sure this...
He's the talent.
Yeah, he's the talent. But then some people were giving him the signs and saying, we need to do this, we need to do that. So it's almost like the BBC were like, we were trying, but it just didn't quite... It's like...
Yeah, the female management in the BBC, well, the one in particular, I remember, hated him.
All the women.
It's got a bad vibe off him. And, you know, women were told not to be left alone with him.
That was a rule. Like, because he invited himself into a hospital where his friend worked, like he grew up with this guy who was head of like he was a head porter and he had a radio station and all this, and he was like, oh, I can be part of the radio, and he invited himself in, wore a doctor's gown and stuff, and he's like, what are you doing here? And he's going, I'm just cheering people up, and he's going, people think you're weird, go away. And he wouldn't go away, and he goes, and like you said about the women, he would proposition them and they'd go, no, get out of my way, we've been told not to be left alone with you. And it's like, that was day one. Pretty much, and you're like,
but it took decades to come
40 years later, like, and he's still, oh god, but yeah, right. this isn't even an episode about old Jimmy. So now we're getting back on to B.T.K. because we did the first episode a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
And we were up to where he stopped killing for a while because he had a daughter. So we used to go away on little rendezvous alone. Have these little bondage sessions and strangle wanks.
And he's only in these hotels and motels and take wigs and masks and things. Some of the clothing that he'd collected from his previous victims.
And we are on now, according to our sources, April 28th, 1979. And this was a missed target.
Yeah, lucky Anna Williams.
Yep. So we don't know why she did, but basically he got into her home, didn't he, and waited for her, but she didn't turn up.
He waited for a long time and he leaves. So he's admitted this later in an interview, and he left her place. And months later, B.T.K. sends her a package with some of her personal items that he had stolen. Ugh. And he sent them back to her with a note, a poem entitled, Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Shall I read it out?
Yeah.
'Twas perfect plan of deviant pleasure, so bold on that spring night, my inner feeling hot with propension, whatever that is, of the new awakening season. Doesn't even rhyme very well. Warm, wet with inner fear and rapture, my pleasure of entanglement like new vines at night. That's an eerie couple of sentences. My pleasure of entanglement.
And what was,
Now, there's a few misspellings in the poem. Now, we were saying, was he trying to make himself look a bit less intelligent? Is it just...
Is it on purpose?
Is it just been written wrong on the internet, where we're getting the sources from, which I doubt, actually. But yeah, that's dark, man. Warm, wet with inner fear and rapture. I mean, my pleasure of entanglement, like new vines at night. Ugh.
So the creepiest poem at your door is enough to creep you out, but having your own... Oh, where's my new pair of pants?
You could really deconstruct that. I mean, rapture, you got rapture linked to Christianity. Do you know what I mean? In one sense, one interpretation of the word. Fines, right, linked to a Greek god called Dionysus, who was the god of kind of ecstasy and revelation. And they'd all have these orgies of wine in the forest and
I suppose it'll all
shag.
be...
And I mean, he probably didn't know this. And the whole entanglement with,
There's whole breakdowns online of his poetry, referencing specific things like you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So I think, he did have a...
Yeah.
Propension.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
Propension means a natural tendency or disposition.
But yeah, because he was a churchgoer, wasn't he? So there would be some meaning there.
Yeah, lucky Anna Williams anyway, good. August, so this is 4 or 5 months later. 4 months later, is it?
Well, in the meantime, I've got my notes here because when we were watching this stuff to do our own notes, he attempted suicide, didn't he? Because he told the criminologist lady on the phone that he knew he was doing something wrong and he didn't want to carry on doing it, but he couldn't help it. So he said he put a revolver in his mouth.
That's it, and he couldn't do it.
He backed out, yeah.
Shame.
So he was a coward as well.
Terrible shame, really.
So now what we've got... Oh, yeah, the police. What was this? 79. So this is...
6 years after his first murder, this is.
Yeah, and this is now when the police start to actually ask for help from the public. So better late than never, I suppose. So now we're at August 14th, 1979. The police seek public help And they released Nancy Fox's phone call where he rings in about, I've just killed her, she's at this address, whatever. And nothing comes of it. But he later said he regrets it because they got his voice. But
his daughter later heard it and said, I'd have recognised that. I'd have heard that.
Yeah.
I'd have known it was my dad.
But I think she was not long born, I think. Anyway, so nothing came of it. And then fast forward now to another 5 years later, and this is when the task force gets created, and they're called the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and during that time, I guess nothing happens for those 5 years.
Yeah. And this was 7 years after the last victim and 10 years after the first murders. 10 whole years, 10, 11 years, yeah. So, yeah, they've got Wichita Police Chief, establishes a task force devoted to B.T.K's crimes, named after the movie, which I didn't know, released that year. And
Ghostbusters.
And it was headed by a young officer named Ken Landwehr. And this is where he starts to dwindle a bit, I think, in my opinion, because I think with...
In your opinion? He's not as good as he used to be.
Well, it's not. Yeah, back in the day, eh? So we've got the next victim, unfortunately, April 27th, 1985, 7.5 years after the fourth attack, and this is Maureen Hedge. And she was, how old was she? 53.
She lived on the same block as Dennis Rader for 30 years.
Jesus. God. Hi, Dennis. Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah.
And it's like fast forward 20 or 30 years later, and he kills her, like, it's just unreal.
So she waited in a house and she pulled up in the driveway, but she was with a man, so he hid in the cupboard. The bloke left.
I found this interesting before when he was at a Boy Scout meeting and left with stating he had a headache, and he went to a nearby bowling alley, bought a beer, and the bar, purposely spilling some on his shirt to give the onlookers the impression he was drunk. So he's done all this. Thought, I'm going to go down the road and kill my neighbour, like. So yeah, took a taxi to Park City, saw her car was in the driveway, assuming she was home, snuck into her house, cut the phone line, and entered the back door. She wasn't home, so he waited in her bedroom until he saw another car pull into the driveway. Seeing Maureen and another man walking up to the driveway, hid in her closet until 1 o'clock when the man had left and she was asleep. That's dedication. That is
weird. But imagine like. Just can't really imagine
it makes you want to check your closet every time.
I was just thinking this. So she's had hours thinking, my mate's gone home, whatever, I've gone to bed.
Out, and
he just opens the cupboard. That is, like, he likes to, I think he's written these things down, like, the top 10 creepiest things I can approach this, like, because that is gross, man. That freaks me out.
Again, it's choked her to death. But this is extreme now. He dragged the body outside, put her in the boot trunk, and then drove her to his church where
he's experimenting with his fantasies more. He's thinking, well, it'll take ages, but it'll be worth it. That's his mindset, I think. Where he's gone, these photos will last forever. All I got to do is drive her down to the church, and he's probably got the keys. Well, he had the keys because he's the chairman or whatever he was. But that's lugging a body around.
It's many things, isn't it? You want to be caught. It's obviously. It's
the thrill as well, I suppose, like knowing he might get caught as well. He's probably got an erection the entire time because of all the run up to it, like. And then he's got in the church. But yeah, so he's put her in different poses and took photos, and then he's dragged her back up to the car and dumped her in a nearby ditch, and she was found 8 days later. So all that work just for a few satisfactory photos and sexual photos, or whatever poses, and then locked it all up. It's like, bloody hell.
It's insane.
I think maybe subconsciously he's thinking this is, I might get caught soon. I might as well.
Yeah, I think he wants to be caught.
Up my game a bit just to get the top of my fantasies out there,
Because what was the gap between this and the previous victim? Because something must have, there was a big...
7.5 years.
Yeah.
7.5 years, yeah.
So something must have triggered him.
Attack. And as we know, he had quite a few projects, none which... he called these
projects,
victims, different projects, and then he might have had loads that he didn't actually resolve as such.
Well, because a couple like the Mist one, I suppose the Mist one before, from that time till the Maureen Hedge, he's probably thinking, I really need to get this out of my system. And then a neighbour, again, it's convenient. He's probably gone, well, why not? Because it was the same as similar to I think when Bundy was on the run, he kidnapped and did horrible things and killed a young girl who was. I think she was about 12. She was really young, and it was completely different to his normal MO. And I'm thinking it's because he's on the run and everyone's watching him. He's thinking, well, if I kidnap a woman, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be this. Like, if I kidnap a little girl, I can overpower. I can do what I want with her and get out of my system quickly. Do you know what I mean? But that's their way of thinking. They're objects, aren't they?
There's a point made in some of these notes that if you notice the ages of the women as well, he starts to go for an older age because
easier, probably.
They were easier targets for him.
Yeah, and like with the men, obviously the Oteros, he's gone for the man first because it's getting him out of the way first, which I find with a lot of murderers, if they go to a woman's house and go, oh shit, the husband's in, they just...
Well, this one, he waited for the guy to leave. Yeah. Hiding in the closet the whole time.
And I suppose as well, actually, when Kevin escaped, he's probably thinking, I'm not going to even attempt try and kill this guy.
Don't do that again.
Just wait and wait and wait, because he will leave eventually type thing. But that's a long, you know... And I suppose, even if he, I don't know, shoots the guy, that's a big bang late at night. It's going to cause attention.
You wouldn't have had an iPhone back at that point to browse Facebook boys waiting. And,
yeah.
Literally just twiddling his thumbs waiting.
Well, maybe if they had Pornhub back then, it wouldn't have happened. Who knows? So that's Marine Hedge. And what was next on? So this
September
is...
16th, 1986. This is 1.5 years after the last attack. And this is the murder of Vicky
Wegley. I think I've heard them say it on, Wegley maybe. But she's 28, so this is a big gap.
This is the 9th victim in total so far.
And
Piano.
Project... Oh, does it say PJ Project?
Yeah, project. I think it was I thought it was the piano project.
There would have been another one, wouldn't there? Piano one. So yeah, PJ project, and he dressed up as a telephone repairman, knocking on her door when the husband was out. So he's been stalking.
Well, he's been walking by a house. Here we go, listening to her play piano during his planning stage.
You were right then.
And that is dressed up as a telephone repairman. When her husband Bill was out, letting him in. Thinking he was there to help, he cut the phone lines and explained he was going to tie her up. Gunpoint forced her into the bedroom, but she fought back. He grabbed a rope and stopped her fighting by strangling her to death. And her 2-year-old son was on the living room.
Jesus. He likes to unintentionally traumatise kids, doesn't he? He gets in and there's...
Goodness.
Like the one where he locked him in the bathroom.
Oh, it's just...
And he ended up watching the entire thing.
Yeah, the one where he saw the random... boy walking down the road, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. And that guy, from what we've seen, he's not in a good way even today. Like,
no,
it's just horrific.
You said you watched interviews with him, didn't you?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, he does not look in good health. Like,
no,
it's horrible. But
I was listening, involved in my work yesterday. I had a 2-hour lecture on early childhood trauma by quite an esteemed child psychologist, and I mean, the long-term effects of child trauma. It's not dissimilar to a kid who who appears to have, say, for example, autism, be on the autistic spectrum. What early childhood trauma looks like later on in life and autism are very, very, very similar. And it affects the development of the brain.
That's interesting.
It actually affects the physical development of the brain, trauma, early childhood trauma.
Well, I suppose it's just rewiring them, isn't it?
Yeah, and it kind of inhibits their ability to be wired, and as a result of like things later on in life, stressful periods or stressful times, the kid will often, unknowingly to the kid, revert back to the things they had during that childhood trauma, unbeknownst to them.
Yeah,
they've just got, oh my god, I'm really stressed out. Well, actually, they don't know it, but they're kind of reliving the trauma.
Yeah. Well, it sticks with children. Like, it's like, when you say things to a kid, if you accidentally swear when they're like 2, they remember it.
Yeah,
they'll be 6 months later and they'll say it.
Yeah, kids remember some very strange things.
And you'll even forget you said it, and they'll go, say something. Oops, because it just sticks with them. Like, it's fascinating. So he's killed Vicky Wegley. And the 2-year-old son was on the living room floor. I'm assuming he's just left the child there. And what's he done?
He stole her car and drove off as the husband was driving home, and he saw somebody driving his wife's car, but he drove home.
Yeah,
he didn't want to. Obviously, he could have turned around and followed the car, but he would have been concerned about his wife's welfare.
Wow!
So he's driven home.
Oh God! Looking back on that.
Yeah. Now, so he arrived home, seeing his son sitting alone on the floor. he found his wife, rushed to the hospital, but she died. She was pronounced dead after a few hours. And during that time, B.T.K. disposed of the evidence and left the car a few blocks away.
So he's driven home and seen someone come out with her car, but it's not her. And I suppose, you wouldn't chase the car. You'd be thinking, well,
how fun is this?
Yeah. Wow. And then looking back, thinking, I kind of wish I did. Like,
well, he's probably thinking it might just be her popping to the shop or something, or she's going off to do some daily chores.
Could be.
Right, and this one, January 19th, 1991.
Is this 4.5 years after?
So we've gone from the early 70s to 1991.
This is a weird thing in the notes I've written down. I am now 21, and I recall the first murder of the Ontario family. I was 3, and so it just kind of.
Well, it's the fact that the age difference between all of us, and like you were alive throughout all of these murders, and now it's 91. I was alive then, and he's still going. You know,
still going.
It's insane. So this is Dolores E. Davis, and this is the last victim.
Victim number 10.
Confirmed to this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Oh, there we go. So we were right. So this is here saying Rader's now found older women more vulnerable. Choosing 60-year-old Dolores Davis as his next target.
1.5 miles from his home.
No one was safe. The last one was his neighbour, and now he's got someone he probably, recognises, or she recognises him, or 'cause 1.5 miles away is nothing, is it?
No.
And he did this. He committed this murder during the time he was working, or hosting, I should say, or part of the leadership team of a Boy Scout camp.
The timeline on this one is ridiculous.
Is this where he nips off?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I think he's off doing a Boy Scout camping.
That's it.
Yeah.
To go camping that weekend. And on January 19th, he made the excuse to slip away from the meetings for a few hours. He drove his car to his parents, changed out of the Boy Scout leader's uniform, drove to the Baptist church. He parked his car, then he walked to the victim's house. He waited outside till she was asleep, took a cement brick and threw it through the window.
What? Jake's notes, sloppy.
And waking
Why
out.
would you? That's weird, that is.
Yeah, it's like he really wants to get. It's insane. It's insane.
Well, compared to the original ones where he cut the phone lines, he did all these little.
Made sure everything was quiet as a mouse, and he's just
chucking concrete bricks through windows.
So he's waited outside there till she was asleep, took the cement brick and threw it through the back window, waking her up to find him in her house when he could just break in quietly and just poke her awake.
As with the other
really
victims, I'm going through the notes here. He told her he needed money, a car, food, and that he was going to tie her up. Then tied her up in the bedroom and strangled her to death. Goodness.
Well, that's the same thing he says to all of them.
Yeah.
I need to call her money. Yeah.
Well, my theory is he's trying to prolong the whole process, to make it more exciting rather than going in there doing it. Because he could go in there while she's asleep, strangle her, do what he has to do, get the evidence and leave. He'll be in and out in 10 minutes.
The break through the window thing was very uncharacteristic.
Very
of the
strange.
Previous.
Yeah.
He's always kind of increasing the risk, isn't he, I guess?
Yeah, and that's what I think when I said before, he's subconsciously thinking, I've been doing this for 20 years, really, almost 20 years. Yeah. He's thinking that's a long fucking time. Yeah. Maybe he subconsciously knows it's not going to last forever.
He's thinking about it for 30 years.
Yeah. And he's had loads of gaps in between. So he's been there with his family for a year or two thinking, I'm going to get caught eventually, come on, So I reckon he's probably done that just because he found it a bit of fun, maybe. Something different.
It's just weird. Then he puts a body in the back of his car and he stashes the car along with evidence under some trees, even closer to his home, right? He drives back to the victim's house. And he wipes down fingerprints. He drives back to get the body again and transports it and dumps it under a local bridge. He then changes back into his Boy Scout outfit and returns back to the camp with his son and troops. And the very next evening, he goes back to the body to take his pictures.
Jesus. So they won't even know he was gone.
Yeah,
so that's an alibi. All these kids will be like, yeah, we were asleep in the tents, and whoever else was there, and he's gone back to... I think Gary Ridgway did that, the Green River Killer. He would dump them near a river, in a river, and if they haven't been found, and he'd go back weeks and weeks and weeks later when it's been decomposing, and he wouldn't just go, oh, that was fun. He would do things. It's just Why? I know they're trying to relive it, but like, come on, mate. It's not exactly the same as it was in the beginning. You know, she looks a bit different now. So yeah, he's gone back with his son as well. Can you imagine the son growing up being like,
oh my goodness, mate.
Oh yeah, on that camping trip, and my dad slipped out the tent and came back and.
Well, saying that, I've seen quite a few interviews on YouTube with Kerry, and she appears to be, you know, not too shy about discussing her early childhood with her dad and about him and about her experiences growing up. In fact, she's got a book out about it.
Yeah.
Have you got that book?
Yeah, I'm like halfway through it, yeah. It's pretty standard. It's just her life growing up, and then the odd bit where it's like, oh, this was the night that apparently he killed so-and-so, and I was just like having a sleepover with my friends and little things like that. But then most of it is just, basically, it's like almost like a manual for being a perfect dad. Because he was absolutely perfect, in, you know, as far as I can see. And she said that, because apparently she was quite a tomboy. So they would go on camping trips, fishing trips all the time, weekly.
I remember seeing the pictures, actually, of her fishing with her dad, and they come up on the videos. Whereas the brother tends to stay, well, he is staying out of the limelight completely.
Yeah, you don't. I don't know much about the brother, because from realising it now, looking at the book, I don't think she mentions the brother. I think she mentions like he exists.
Okay.
But doesn't say me and my brother did this. He's probably said nope, keep me out. Yeah, just thinking about that, because it doesn't seem like she's got a brother in the book, thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I don't want to sound cynical. I don't mean it to be. But she's found a way to kind of monetize her experiences as such, you know what I mean?
I mean, fair play as well, like, growing up as well, because I think she does suffer with a lot of problems because of it, and it's like, well, fuck you, Dad, I'm going to make some money out of it. Why not? It might give me a little bit of happiness, but there is a bit of, like me and Jake were talking about, like, why would you keep... Because she's done plenty of interviews that I've seen, like different news stations or whatever, and a book, and it's like, well, how often do you need to keep reliving it, you know?
That's it, and she's also spoken about, I think the last time she saw her dad... This was an interview I saw on YouTube, and she goes into quite big detail about it to the interviewer, to the news person, about how, you know, his appearance. He's in a wheelchair, I think, at the moment.
Oh yeah, of course. And fairly recently, yeah, because he must be in his. I'm sure he's in his 70s now.
God, yeah, Well,
he's born in the 40s, I think, from what I remember. So he's
probably on there,
probably late 70s, I'd say now. Yeah, so he's probably not. And he's just, I suppose, in prison as well, sitting there doing nothing all day isn't good for your health, right? So
no. Unless you're like really into yoga.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be doing many push-ups in prison at that age, like.
No, and then he disappears, doesn't he? From 1991.
Oh, this is fascinating.
To 2004, he goes completely off the radar.
Rader goes off the radar.
Rader goes off the radar. We can write that down. Oh, yeah. And then January 2004, the Wichita. How do you say it, Jake? Wichita. Yeah. Eagle runs a 30th anniversary piece on B.T.K. So that's 2004. I am now 34 years old, right?
I just graduated high school.
I'm 14.
This is
and he's still in our generations, all three of us, you know.
So bloody weird. And so 3 decades after the first murders of the Ontario family, the local paper prints an article looking at it. A book about B.T.K. comes out. And those two things prompt Dennis Rader to come out hiding and try to kind of re-establish some kind of communication with the authorities.
And I think as well, I've read that he was pissed off because some of the book wasn't true. So that was another reason why he thought, I'm not having this. I'm in control. This is my doing, my life or whatever, and that's what's
I wonder what book it was, because I bet there's a few.
I wonder what that actual... that'd be quite fascinating.
Yeah, to Google it, see which book was
the one
published.
that actually brought him back out and got in court, really, essentially.
Well, I was thinking, like, if all this hadn't been done, he probably would have just carried on. Yeah, he probably wouldn't even...
Yeah.
There'd have been 3 or 4 more murders.
Yeah. Garnish so much attention. I'm guessing he probably wants to be a part of that and get his quote, appreciation.
Yeah, and like you said before, he was going for older women, because he's obviously thinking he's not fit as a fiddle when he was 21 anymore. So he's probably at this point he's probably thinking, I do really need to stop. I can't even do it anymore. And he probably did really try, but then he's gone. His arrogance has got the best of him, hasn't it? And, like, I'm not having this. I'm BTK. I called myself BTK. You know, I'm in control.
I want some glory. So March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day, actually, Rader sends a letter under the name Bill Thomas Killman.
Killman.
Killman. BTK. It contained 3 photocopy pictures of the ones he took a Vicky Wedgery and a driver's license, ending with the B.T.K. BTK signature.
Beatboxing now.
Now we're at May the 5th, 2004. Rader sends a package to KAKE TV News, including a phony ID, chapter titles for a BTK... chapter titles!
That he wants.
And a find the word letter grid spelling out clues like prowl and fantasies. No signature. Puzzle sleuths later realised the letters RADER are grouped around the number 6220, the author's street address.
He's literally taken the piss.
That's ridiculous, isn't he?
He's mocking them.
That's just all you have to say about that. You're taking the royal piss here now, Dennis. Come on, mate.
He's mocking them. June 9th, 2004, he leaves a package taped to a sign in the middle of the city, which had a gruesome description of the Ontario murders. So he's obviously communicating to the police. The police will think, well, nobody else knows that, only we know that. So it's going to be BTK. And a sketch of a dead body hanging by a rope. He titled the sketch, My Sexual Thrill Is My Bill.
He's got away with words, Dennis, hasn't he?
Yeah, which I guess relates back to BTK here, the Bill Thomas Killman.
Yeah, and then what's the next one? There's a few, isn't there?
June the 17th.
He's on a roll now.
Yeah, it's within like a 6-7 month span. This. From memory,
yeah, March to October 2004. So we got June 2004. He leaves another package and a letter labelled BTK at the Wichita Public Library. The letter explaining time is running out until his next hit.
Now this bit I find a bit fascinating because the police were looking for him, and they knew that he was photocopying documents. And so what they did is they'd started to examine the photocopies they had because...
the Xerox
machines, because they worked out it was from a Xerox machine. They worked out there were 2 in that place. And how they did that is obviously every photocopy machine's got that glass front. And if you got a speck of dust or a speck of dirt, or it's almost like a fingerprint. Because every photocopy would have that speck of dust dot on it somewhere. Right. And that's how they found the photocopying machine.
Oh, wow.
By literally looking for...
like distinguishable...
marks. Yeah. Not from the piece of paper, but there's actually on the glass.
Huh. Yeah, because I suppose hundreds of people a day using it, it's going to have chips on it or marks.
That's it, marks. And so it doesn't matter what's being photocopied, that same mark might be on 1,000 or 2,000 photocopies that are done that day.
And it was like
until it's cleaned.
Like in Mindhunter, when he's photocopying stuff and he gets pissed off because it's not working very well. And that young guy is trying to help him, and he's taking his stuff out, and so they could find out maybe there's something wrong with his photocopying because that one's particularly broken.
Well, the piece of paper that's jammed in there could be a confession note.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why he was stood there, wasn't he? Going, I need my personal.
I'm not leaving this until I've got that piece of paper's mine. I own that. I'm not leaving it until I have it.
Yeah.
He makes a massive fuss.
And I suppose if he did leave it, which was stupid, but that kid could look at it and go give it to the police and then go, it was that guy.
Yeah. Just weird.
So he stood there, didn't he? He was going, no, I want my personal property back.
I want my piece of paper. And then it's October the 22nd, a UPS driver finds a manila envelope. Inside is a collage of children with bindings drawn across their bodies and faces. So that's on the envelope. And inside the manila envelope, as well as an autobiography that listed false details about BTK, to mislead the police. So that's weird.
But we know now, anyway, just in a nutshell, that he's communicating as much as he can.
He probably wants to be in the paper again. Yeah. He probably wants,
how many people do I have to kill?
Well, the news company from the KAKE TV, whatever it was, that's the same company from when he first contacted way back in the 70s as well.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. So where are we? January 25th, 2005. A few days before my 16th birthday, actually. A postcard 15th birthday. A postcard points to more clues. Sends another postcard to KAKE TV, directing him to a cereal box at the side of the road, which I think I've seen photos of, and it was really creepy.
I've seen photographs of that.
Yes, yeah. With a graphic description of BTK's first murders and another doll fashioned in a death position. Importantly, another section of the postcard asks the police if anyone's found BTK's other package at a local hardware store.
Well, and they look in a local hardware store and they find another cereal box. Is that right? Police investigate the store, learning that one employee had found another cereal box in the bed of his truck with a message asking if B.T.K. could communicate via a computer floppy disk.
Here we go.
Without being traced. And if so, the police were instructed to run a newspaper ad with the message, Rex, it will be okay. It'll be okay to send us a disc. We won't find out who you are.
Oh, yeah, because it was the paper... was it not like Lonely Hearts? Was it the communicating between, calling them different names, wasn't it? Something like that. Because I think they did that with Zodiac or something, where it was like, hi, James, or whatever, and then you would know that's to you. If it was something like that anyway. Rex, yeah. January 28th, 2005, my 15th birthday. The newspaper runs a classified ad that reads, Rex, it'll be okay. There you go, classified ads. That's what I mean.
That's it.
Contact me, P.O. Box, first for reference number 67202. 6 days later, B.T.K. B.T.K. confirms his receipt of the message through another postcard sent to K.A.K.E. So he's going downhill very rapidly, isn't he?
Yeah, so where it all falls apart. So February the 16th, this is when he sent a floppy disk in, breaking open the case. Now, February the 16th, 2005, I'm now 34 years old, and that is 31 years. Is that right? 31 years after his first murder.
Yeah, it was like early 70s, wasn't it, when he started?
73.
Yeah. And this is we laugh about the floppy disk, because this is just the stupidest thing ever, isn't it?
Thank God.
So he contacted the police, didn't he, and said, was it the police or was it the KAKE police?
Yeah, well, so he's seen a classified ad saying, yeah, okay.
Well, they'd be working with the police, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you can send it in. They received a floppy disk. It arrives by mail to the newspaper, who uncovers his message about checking an index card for more information. So the police put the disc in the computer. They're looking at the stuff, but underneath that, there's metadata. There's stuff that isn't that transparent to the computer user.
If I remember correctly, they uncovered and it just said Dennis.
Yeah.
And Christ Lutheran Church.
Yeah. So that would have been maybe on the formatting. It would have been formatted on that certain computer.
Yeah. Well, it was the
by
computer
that certain user.
at his church, I think is what it was. And then they looked up the church and found, there he is.
Absolutely. Christ Lutheran Church and Park City Library.
Because he asked them, didn't he? Oh, this won't come back to me, will it?
No,
of course it won't, mate. Yeah. Because, if it would come back to you, we would, of course, tell you,
I'm wondering how much of it just being him being a bit old and not knowing technology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's all... It escalated pretty quick, the computers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He doesn't have his mind around it, really, does he?
Yeah, because to be fair, even thinking about it, floppy disk back then, I wouldn't automatically assume it would be... Because it's just a bit of plastic. You write something on it and how to come back. Yeah. It doesn't really automatically occur to you, like...
And floppy disk, I mean, at a point in 2005, people aren't using that many floppy disks anymore. No. Not really.
I don't remember using them a lot. I mean, I did, like, school...
Yeah, I mean, I remember using them a lot. And when you got your first laptops, you would have a little space for a floppy disk and for a CD burner.
That's the point. You're burning CDs, though, aren't you?
I'm that old. I burn CDs. So now they've got a name, and this is interesting because this is the first point on all the notes that the word internet is used. So the police, because obviously it's happened over such a long period of time, within seconds, the police do an internet search for Christ Lutheran Church, and it reveals the name of the president, Dennis Rader. I mean, within seconds.
And you think about, if you were still like the cop on the case throughout all that time, you're thinking, fuck me, this took me 5 minutes.
which is the case, because the head of the Ghostbuster squad from 1984 is the guy that eventually got him.
Yep.
So that took him 21 years.
I threw in the guy's name specifically from the Ghostbusters case because he's still involved.
Yeah, I remember, and then it goes back there. Yeah. I remember reading it because that bit was great.
Fred.
I think I wrote, remember this name. Yeah.
Yeah, Ken Landwehr.
So 1984 to 2005, so 21 years, and he's just gone click, floppy disk, and it's Dennis.
He's earned his pension.
Jesus Christ, yeah. Oh my God, man. So this is obviously He's identified. They pick him up, and I remember from Kerry's book.
Wasn't it loads and loads of police? There was tons of cars down this street.
Yeah, I think it was. It says there you go. Heading home from the office to have lunch with his wife, Rader is pulled over by a line of police cars, trailing him and taken into custody. So they didn't obviously take any prisoners.
And remember that before that they wanted to ensure that Dennis was the guy because they did have his DNA at this point.
So they would
his daughter had gone to hospital for something,
pap smear,
something like that. Yeah, and so they had the daughter's DNA. The police requested that DNA, got it, discovered that it matches the kind of DNA found on some of the murder victims, and that's when they definitely knew it was Dennis.
Yeah,
that's.
And I remember
proof.
In her later interviews, I think she got compensation because I know it was for the good.
Of privacy.
Yeah, because it's. She didn't give permission for that.
Oh. And she was mostly pissed off because it was about a smear test, which is quite a personal thing,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And done without her knowledge, without her consent. They would have had a warrant.
Yeah.
But
so now they've got him.
What if she said no? I don't give you consent to use
No, because they didn't ask her for consent. They got the consent from the judge.
Yeah, they would.
She didn't know. So when it first came out, people thought that the daughter had colluded with the police by giving over the DNA willingly, but it was taken without the daughter's consent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Reading in the interviews with her, and she says, because I think she said she was in the house, wasn't she, at the time? And I think she's married at this point, and she said she was in the kitchen, and a detective said something like, "Oh, do you know about B.T.K?" I said, "Yeah, roughly, like this, that, the other." And she goes, "Oh, I was living my life at this point, as a teenager. I didn't really pay much attention." But then she goes, "Oh, is my grandma all right?"
Yeah, because she thought maybe her grandma had been sort of...
Because she wouldn't just go, "Oh, is it my dad?" And then they went, "No, it's your father." And she said it felt like someone punched her in the stomach. She said she nearly passed out. She was holding onto the side of the kitchen sides and the feeling...
Scouts. I mean, it kind of blows up all the profiling, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because he was, the church, the Boy Scouts. He had all these, when he worked for the alarm company and he was keeping people secure. And I did that in one of my new videos on TikTok when he was installing alarms for the sole purpose of people requesting them to be protected against B.T.K. So he was going in there going, "Oh, where would you like this alarm, ma'am?" And it's like, it's because of him he's doing it. Like, it's fucking
that's
insane.
One way to kind of get more business, isn't
it? Yeah, kill your neighbour and your profits will go through the roof. So he's been charged. This is February 28, 2005.
Now there's some interesting videos around this point when he's kind of going through the process, and then ultimately there is the court case, which is all over YouTube.
Oh God, watch it. If you find this interesting, watch it.
But prior to that, there's moments that we've seen watching YouTube videos when he's wearing an orange jumpsuit. He turns his head to the left and he says to somebody, "I'm B.T.K." Remember that
like a grin.
Yeah, and he smirks, and it's like I think he's waited 32 years to say that to someone.
Yeah.
He has been so. He's got this kind of huge weight he's carrying around with him all the time. He really wants to share it with someone because he wants the reaction. He wants that notoriety, and then finally he could do it. And then when it eventually gets to court, so the way he goes into such matter-of-fact detail about his murders, it's just.
Well, I think we said before, it's like reading a fucking manual. He's going like, "Oh, I got Mrs. Otero, I put her down. Then I went to Joseph Jr., then I put him down. And then I thought, oh, actually, no, Mrs. Otero isn't down. So I put the bag over her head again, and then she was down." And he's saying this to a judge in a room full of people, and like his lawyer's whispering in his ear and stuff. And he's like, can you imagine his daughter and his wife just sat there fucking like... And they've just raised, had a family. They've been a family for 30 odd years.
They wouldn't be in the courtroom when he's going.
Nah, but I think they probably would have seen it, or or in the papers.
By now, yeah.
And you think, I went camping with this guy every weekend, and he's saying about murdering an entire family. Like,
goodness me! And then every now and again, his legal advice team are leaning in and giving him advice, and you're thinking, how can they even talk to him?
Yeah.
And the views of the people behind. Every now and again, you see their faces and this shock, and the victims' families are going to be in that court.
Oh, yeah. Well, they have in America. They have the victim impact statements, don't they? And I don't know have we seen those.
Well, I remember we watched a few YouTube videos of some of the victims' family members.
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, where they're just
especially. I mean, one that jumps. They all. Yeah, the Peter interview when he was getting. Is that no Kevin?
Kevin,
and then you got the other brothers from the Ontario family.
Oh, the Otero. Yeah.
And they discuss.
And they're just saying like, "You're evil. You're this, that," and he's just completely blank.
Yeah.
He looks like he's going on. Just get it over and done with. I just can't be bothered. Like he's got no empathy, no nothing. Like, and he's ruined these people's lives forever. You know.
And there's another bit of his court statement where it's like the end, at the very end, and it's like the credits. And he thanks. I want to thank this police officer for doing his job so diligently, and I want to thank the kind people that take me to and from prison in the car. They're a nice bunch of people. I admire you very much.
Yeah, and
it's like it's almost like the end of a movie, and he's crediting all the people that he's interacted with.
This is B.T.K. the movie, like
an award speech.
Yeah. And he says about he goes into all this really like fake stories, you know, like the lives of the victims, and he'll say like, oh, you know, Vicky Wegerly was only this age and she had so much ahead of her and she was going to uni, you know, like, and I can't believe I've done it, and she would have gone on to do amazing things, and it's like, shut up, man, you don't give a shit about these people, and their families are sat there just, you don't have to say these things, but he likes the sound of his own voice. He's finally got the stand, and he's thinking, I'm going to just carry on and on.
And when he does kind of apologise, but it's so pithy and shit.
Yeah, like you can't apologise for any of that, you know, and for someone to go, oh, I forgive you, because they won't, will you know? And he's going like, I'm really sorry for what I've done.
Yeah, maybe one day they can forgive me. It's like,
yeah, Jesus Christ, like burn in hell, man. Bye, you know. But yeah, like I said, he likes the sound of his own voice, and he carried on, and like in the interviews,
bit like me.
So now he's been caught, and what did he get? He was something like.
Did he get a life sentence for every murder?
I think it was, multiple life sentences.
But he didn't get the death penalty because they didn't have in
Kansas.
Yeah, I think I looked that up, and they don't have
I
the.
think there's only a handful of states that death penalty. Texas is the one that stands out.
I think maybe if he got caught 20 years before, they might have had the law.
Yeah. I could have been wrong. I could be wrong, but maybe if he had, because he pled guilty, if he had pled not guilty, and then got found guilty. Maybe they got a death sentence. I don't know.
Because they do like plea deals, don't they? Like if you admit to it all, then you won't go to the chair. You'll go to the prison cell forever.
Instead of 8 life sentences, you get 6.
Yeah. Rather than 280 years, you get 112. Oh, that's all right. Cool. So yeah, that's B.T.K. for you.
Well, you didn't the current cases.
Was it 2, maybe 3 people?
There were two that definitely tied in. One of them was
it co-worker?
Oh, the laundromat. And there's a note from his journal that makes a point, and he has that interview.
Yeah, and he talks about his fantasy.
Whereas his biggest fantasy was a woman from a laundromat.
And he basically describes a murder that really happened at the time.
And he happened to be working for the security company, installing cameras at the bank across the street from the laundromat
so we could watch.
Had been going to.
Wow.
So that could have been another opportunity. He might have been leaving work. There's a lone girl in there. It's another opportunistic.
And I think, like you've said before, he's keeping them to himself so he can just throw them out in intervals just to get more attention because he's getting older. And if now, if it's all done and dusted, he's just going to rot in prison. No one's going to care anymore. But if he's got them in the bag, he's thinking he could throw them out in the next couple of years and go, that was me.
Yeah, because it's still on the news now. They're investigating those 2 cold cases.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of Ian Brady.
Yes. Yeah, with the little boy that was still buried.
Yeah, he would never admit where the last body was.
That broke my heart when it came out. I remember it was all over the news, all over the newspapers. And I remember specifically actually going into a supermarket and seeing all the papers, his face and her face. And it was something like, please, Ian, tell me where my little boy is. And he was just like, meh.
No.
And she died, broken heart probably, and he died as well after and never told anyone.
Jesus.
So he's still there. And that really, really upset me, actually. It was quite, because it's...
That gives him that power control thing.
Yeah, so he's basically thinking, well, I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to go with this secret, haha, fuck you, you know. Not nice. But yeah, but wasn't it, they thought he was buried where Myra had a picture with her dog. Do you remember that? And they dug up. Yeah, there was a picture, they looked for all their like family photos, and she's with a dog. And they dug it up, and I think one of the victims was underneath. So they were doing that on purpose, you know. But anyway, yeah, so that was... I think that's what B.T.K is doing with these Because I'm convinced. I'm 90% convinced.
I don't know about the laundromat. I don't know her name. Sorry, but the guy that was doing the investigation, picking up the cold case, when he went to interview B.T.K, he didn't bring up anything about her. He didn't even discuss her. He didn't bring up her name. He just off the cusp brought up that fantasy laundromat comment.
I remember that.
No reference to anything
from your
else.
notes, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the guy, the cop, detective, thought, all right, come on, like.
Yeah. We are. I reckon in the next
couple of years,
it's going to come out definitely.
And I was saying to you, you're getting weekly updates in newspapers and AP Press. And,
because when we YouTubed it again just to get a recap, didn't we? And then there was recent news things. Yeah, wow. So we are convinced there are more, and it will come out. But I find it one of the most fascinating cases just because of the way he is, when you watch interviews with him and just how private his, like the Iceman almost, but just not as, obviously more cold or whatever, but it's just the two lives that he had fascinates me because you get other people where they get kind of suspicious.
And they overlap. They merge at some point.
Yeah, and people kind of go, oh, that happened and this happened. But or they get caught for little misdemeanors throughout their life, like, a bit of sexual assault and they go to prison for 6 months.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do, like, apart from certain ones. But he had a completely different life to his...
Yeah, and imagine one of the interviews on YouTube we've seen is they're talking to people at his church who thought they were like, oh, he's my friend.
Yeah.
And they just can't believe it.
Yeah.
They just cannot believe it.
And it's the fact that he wasn't your friend. He was using you as a cover. He was manipulating you as well. He manipulated everyone he came across.
Yet another expert manipulator.
And also with the family aspect as well, I think in an interview with him or in the court case, you can see he does actually have a bit of emotion towards his family. He'll mention it and he gets... And it's the same as the Iceman. The Iceman cried when he talked about his family, even though he claimed to killed over 200 people. And they'll say, oh, we chopped his head off and shot him in the face. But he's like, and kind of grinning about it. And then when he says, oh, my family hate me, he starts welling up. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, but I still question their sincerity at those points.
Of course, yeah. You've got to always question it. Well, when we were talking about Jimmy Savile before, when he was saying about the guy that was writing a book about him, he says, do you think that all the charity work, the millions that you raise for charity and all the marathons that you run and all this and, opened hospitals for people, is that in your mind weighing out the evil that you did behind closed doors? And he's like, no, I love helping people. It brings a smile to my face. And it's like,
not altruistic in any way whatsoever.
It's like, no, it's bollocks. So I think he's gone. BTK's thought, I've been a wonderful dad. I've tried my hardest, and so I'm not completely evil.
I go to mass every Sunday and blah blah blah. Pray to God.
Yeah. And it's the God aspect. They always use that, especially Americans as well.
Be careful.
Yeah. But do you know what I mean? They'll use that to their sort of advantage to try and justify what they did. And it's like, well, no, the jury aren't stupid. You're still going to go down forever. Yeah. So,
although one must say, it's the Catholics that can go and have confession, and all their sins are absolved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
First thing Tony Blair did after the Iraq War was become a Catholic. just putting that out there.
Oh my God!
Just putting that out there.
Religion, schmeligion.
And again, that goes back to the Jimmy Savile thing. He was Catholic, and there's instances in that where they are kind of imagining him doing his confession, because he went to confession, and when he died, he had his last rites and holy confession. So technically, he was absolved from sin.
Yeah, and that'll just make them feel better. So they'll be on their deathbed going, well, I've done my confession, so I'm all right now.
Heaven, here I come.
Yeah.
Heaven, here I come.
So that was BTK.
Yeah, goodness me.
We will do another one in the next couple of weeks. I think we've got a few more ideas, haven't we, of who to do.
Yeah, definitely. We might do. It'd be interesting to do one on Savile. We
could do, yeah. Because we started it with about a good 20 minutes in anyway. But yeah, I think because of the last, we should watch the Netflix thing about him as well. Which when that came out, it's like. But yeah, we've got a few more ideas. But thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Please share and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll be doing more TikTok videos. I'm posting stuff on Instagram. And if you want to email us, deadstuffpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks Kev. Thanks Jake.
Thank you, people. Sorry about the noise in the background and the dogs.
Yeah.
That's life, isn't it?
Adds to the
I'm saving up for a studio.
Yeah, it makes it more natural.
It's the ambiance.
ambiance.
Peace.
Say bye, Jake.
Bye, Jake. I've got no idea how I'm going to cut this up.
No, it's going to be complicated.
Yeah.
I think just